Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I'm excited you're here, and if you're new here, thank you so much for joining me. I love talking about books and art and music and filmmaking, pop culture, all that kind of stuff. So thank you for joining me. Today I'm going to be talking about books and my TBR list and what I'm currently reading, what I'm looking forward to reading. So for starters, a lot of this is going to be kind of off the cuff. I do have a stack of books that I am ready to talk about, but I wanted to share a little bit of like my philosophy of a TBR list. And I wanted to get this video out there because I love sharing what I'm excited about, what I'm passionate about, books and movies and whatever else that I'm looking forward to. And I hope that you guys find that interesting and that you'll share in that with me. Please feel free to leave comments about what you're reading and what you're excited to read. Okay, so I'm gonna begin by talking about what I'm currently reading. Right now I'm reading a Star Wars book. It's from the new J.R.R. series and it's called Balance Point. I'm really enjoying it so far. I love this series. I haven't read it all the way through. It's been many years of collecting the books and just honestly taking my time. But I really like these books and I like the characters in them. A lot of them are from the Young Jedi Knight series that I read when I was a kid, but they're a little bit older now. So it's cool to see their maturity and the challenges that are facing them and that are facing the whole galaxy. And I've got, I guess, maybe like a third of the book left. So I'm excited to finish this up and continue with this series. Okay, so now as I go through my list, here's a little bit of my philosophy, okay? I am not a super regimented, like, okay, I gotta read every book that I buy in the order that I buy them in. So I don't do that. And I also don't make like a hard list for like the month or the year of like, okay, I'm gonna read 20 books and I'm gonna read them all in this exact order. What I do is, whether I'm buying books or making a list or whatever, I find the books obviously that I wanna read, and I do my best to kind of get a sense of a general order. It's like, yes, I would like to get to this one sooner than this one, this one sooner than this one. But for me, like, just being a person in the world, as days go by, months go by, whatever, your mood can change, your preferences can change a little bit. It doesn't mean I want to just discard everything on my list or chuck books out, but sometimes I might want to do that with a book, or sometimes I might want to reorder a book because someone said, oh, it's so amazing, and I trust their recommendation. My point is, I don't have a very, very strict list. So I'm gonna go through about like 9 or 10 books, and you might be thinking, like, that's not even a book a month. I've got more books behind me. I've got more books that I do wanna read. But again, the whole point is to kind of have a little bit of wiggle room to add in extra books or rearrange books. But these are ones that I feel pretty confident that I wanna get to soon, and hopefully all the way through this year. So I'm gonna start with a classic book, which is Paradise Lost by John Milton. Sorry, there's no like fancy cover, but this was actually my grandfather's, so I actually love it. I love the look of old books and just kind of the simplicity, of colors. And yeah, the spine is kind of like worn in terms of the lettering. You don't see it, but it still is beautiful, is well formatted. And Paradise Lost is a classic epic poem by John Milton. It has to do with creation and Adam and Eve in the garden being tempted by Satan and the fall of the angels. So I know a lot of people that are into like literature and poetry and studying epic poems and things like that. This is one that's kind of a must read. I also want to read it because C.S. Lewis has a book called A Preface to Paradise Lost, which I want to get to at some point as well because I'm a big C.S. Lewis fan. And from what I understand loosely, okay, this is not to be taken obviously as scripture from the Bible, okay? We're just taking the stories that are in Genesis, in creation, and he's giving it more of this like mythic, epic flair from what I understand. So very curious about that. Moving right along, my next book on the list is Reflections on the Psalms by C.S. Lewis. As I said, I'm a big fan of his works. I read the Chronicles of Narnia when I was a kid, and as an adult, I've been reading all of his other works, his theological works, his essays, his studies on literature and criticism. This is one that I've had on deck for a while, if I'm being honest, and having recently published like a poetry book. My poetry book's called Spirit Well, by the way, if you want to check it out, it's on Amazon. But I've been really getting into poetry recently, and so I like reading poetry, and the Psalms is a lot of poetic literature that you find in the Bible. There are songs, obviously, but there's different literary styles throughout scripture, and the Psalms are considered to be like poetry literature. So again, with both those interests of Lewis and poetry, I'm very, very curious to see what his thoughts are concerning the Psalms, how he analyzes them, how he reflects on them, how he thinks people should reflect on them, whatever. I'm just very curious to see how he approaches this very specific type of literature. Okay, the next book is called Studies in Words, again by C.S. Lewis. I love language. I find meaning and nuance fascinating. I wish I could fluently speak other languages. In school, I learned some Spanish. I'm trying to relearn that again. I love Tolkien, so I like his made up elven language. I want to learn Japanese. And having been to Kenya, I have a fascination with Swahili. So I just love the sounds that words make, how lyrical they can be. And again, how in certain languages, there's more depth to this word versus how it's translated in another language. And the fact that all of it is like bringing us together to connect, all of it's bringing us together to understand each other. And as someone who's, a Christian, a believer, the scriptures tell us that Jesus is the word. And so like that is fascinating to try and grasp that, and the fact that when you read Genesis, God spoke everything into existence, So I'm just fascinated by language and the etymology, the history of how languages transform and the metamorphosis of all those things. So I know that there's going to be a lot of very intriguing analysis of words and the history of words and philosophy of words and what it means in terms of literature, in terms of spoken language and all that. I'm excited to see and to ponder and to read Lewis's ideas on words. Okay, taking a break from Lewis, jumping back into Star Wars. So I've got some more New Jedi Order books here. These are Edge of Victory 1 and 2. So part 1 is called Conquest, part 2 is called Rebirth. So who knows, I might get another 3 to 5 New Jedi Order books in this year. But I figured, if I'm gonna start a two-parter, I'm probably gonna wanna read the second one, right? So I wanted to get further along in this series. As I said, I've been in it for more years than I care to admit. But I've always enjoyed Star Wars, and I think I like the idea of kind of breaking it up and not rushing through it and revisiting it and things like that. But I think it's time for me to kind of push further along in this series. And like I said earlier in the video, I'm really enjoying it right now and the characters that I've always loved and seeing the progression of those characters. So I'm hoping to dive a little bit deeper into this year with these two. Okay, fair warning, the rest of these books are gonna be Tolkien books. I'm a big J.R.R. Tolkien fan. I love Lord of the Rings. I love Middle-earth. I love The Hobbit. So these aren't strictly in a particular order. We'll see. Like I said, I might change the order of them as the year goes. But with that, the next book would be The Battle of Maldon, together with The Homecoming of Beorhtnoth. No idea if I said that right. Whatever the case, I'm excited about this one. Tolkien was a big fan of all kinds of myths and epic poetry. It has to do with Vikings and Anglo-Saxons. And there's a really cool excerpt here from the flap that says, J.R.R. Tolkien considered the Battle of Maldon the last surviving fragment of ancient English heroic minstrelsy. And again, I find stuff like that so fascinating when we have, maybe a small fragment of something that, to the best of its ability represents a very specific thing. In a lot of cases, we're translating it, so it's not always gonna be, perfectly accurate in the sense of how that original audience would have received it. Regardless, I find that so interesting. It's a peek into history, into past, into myth, into story. And for people like Tolkien to take the care to help preserve and retell these stories and keep them with us, I think is so cool, and I'm just very interested to see what this one's all about. All right, so the next Tolkien book is The Lay of Altru and Itrun. So again, we've got some more poetry. So this was originally written in 1930 at a time when Tolkien was really interested in Celtic and Breton myth and legend. So again, I'm very excited. I love the cover. It doesn't seem to be too long. And I really enjoy these works of Tolkien that are published posthumously because they usually include like commentary and notes. And if his son Christopher Tolkien was a part of that, he does a really great job of preserving what his father's intentions were and giving great insight into the stories. All right, the next Tolkien book is The Fall of Gondolin. I love this world that Tolkien created, and this is one of those stories that he considered to be one of the first within that world. We've got elves, we've got Morgoth and battles, and this one's really cool too because it has illustrations by Alan Lee. I don't know if you can see very well on the cover here, but those are some of his illustrations. They're beautiful, and I just think it's a great addition to Tolkien's books. All right, last but surely not least is Beren and Luthien by J.R.R. Tolkien, and I'm very excited about this. So I read the Silmarillion a long time ago, but Beren and Luthien have their own story within that history of the Silmarillion, and it's very, very cool. Beren is a mortal man, Luthien is an elven princess, and her father is not too keen on them falling in love with each other. And so there's a lot of tragic aspects to it, but it's beautiful and I love reading their stories. So I'm hoping there's a lot more character background and story to dive into in a full book, you know, telling of that story. And it's cool too, because if you've read Lord of the Rings, you know, Arwen and Aragorn, their love story, their story arc is kind of similar. It parallels these two characters. So Aragorn's one of my favorite characters, and I love the symbolism and the comparisons. And yeah, I'm just excited to dive deep into this. Once again, we've got beautiful illustrations by Alan Lee. All right, that's gonna be my TBR list for 2026. As mentioned before, this list can change and shift. And if you've got suggestions to add to my list, I'm always excited about suggestions and I wanna know what you're reading. Type your lists below. I'd love to see, maybe I'll add something to my list. If you've read any of these, let me know which ones are your favorite. I love engaging with this community and I so appreciate the time you guys take to do that with me. If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe. I'm really trying to grow this channel and provide more quality content to you guys. And let me know what you like and what you don't like. That helps me out so much. As always, guys, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys in the next video.